was a Cadillac. He immediately locked the doors. He had the automatic locks. And I remember he was smoking, and he violently raped me. I thought I was gonna die. And he dropped me off, and he said, "Have a nice day," as if it was a piece of garbage. That hurt more than the rapes. I felt so invisible. That was the theme of my life. My name is Frankie Malamachi. Hear my story. I am the youngest girl of 3. I have 2 older brothers. My mom and my dad were very much Italian, and I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I remember on Sundays we would go to church. Me and my mom, we went to a Catholic church, and we would always come home, and there would always be a beautiful array of food, pastas and all that, and then we would watch Abbott and Costello. But things started to change when I hit 4th grade. My relatives lived close by, okay? And I was riding my bicycle, and my relative told me to get into the car, that he would drive me home. And I said, "What about my bike?" And he said, "I'll put it in the trunk." And so I got into the front seat. Immediately you know something is not right. And I kept looking at the car handle, like, I should jump out now. I should jump out now. And I didn't, because you're paralyzed with fear. You know something is wrong. And he started molesting me. And that continued on for years. And one of the things that really stuck with me was that we would have huge gatherings, and I remember a 12 top with all my family. And my father would be at the one end, and my relative would be at the other end. And he would make me sit on his lap. And while my whole family was there, he started doing things under the table. And my thought as a child was like, my whole family is here and nobody's seeing me. That's been the issue my whole life, that nobody sees the pain that I'm going through. When I'm sitting there on his lap and the whole family is there, and nothing was seen. And or he would just come into the house and I'm trying to do homework, and he right with my parents in the next room, and he would just do all these things. And my thought was, if he ever did anything to my brothers, I'll kill him, I'll hurt him. Do what you want to me, because I felt like at this point, this was me, my life, but don't touch my family, And so that continued on in high school. And once high school started, like I said, we went to a Catholic schools our whole lives. And I went to a Catholic school for girls, and my brothers went to one for boys. And I got molested by a priest, and while we were visiting their school. And I remember that caused me to not concentrate on school, because mentally I wasn't there. I would block everything out. So what the teacher would do, she would put all the test scores on the board, and I would always be on the bottom because I wasn't there mentally, because I wanted to zone out. And that just added fuel to the fire. And I was constantly called the stupidest, I'm an idiot, ugly. And my family didn't see any of this, what it was doing to me. Nobody did. I felt totally invisible. I remember one time I went to the bathroom and I tried to OD on Tylenol. And I locked the door, of course, and I took the whole bottle. And all my dad did was yell at me because I was in the bathroom too long. I was throwing up. I then moved on to cutting myself. I would take a blade and I would slice my face because I figured I could slice the ugliness off of me, And again, I felt invisible. Nobody said anything. I would come out and I would be completely scratched from, nobody said anything, you know, and I went to school like that. Nobody, and I part of it did it for another kind of attention, you know, because I was getting such that negative attention. I wanted that, are you okay? We're here for you, we love you, we see you. Nobody ever saw me. I had all these things happening. That would be the prefaces of what my life was to become because of all that. The drugs came later. I remember at the end of my 15th year, you know, I didn't graduate high school because of everything that was going on. My father was a bricklayer, and he had built a model of the house that he was going to move to in Miami, and it was beautiful. And he said, do you want to come live with us in Miami, or do you want to stay in the streets of New York? And I said, I'm going to stay here. When I moved out on my own, everything was pretty good. You know, I got a job, I rented a room in a beautiful Victorian home, you know, and everything was good. And then all it takes is meeting that one person that's going to change your life. And I noticed that we would all hang out together, and he would have he would hold on to a bottle. I'm like, what is that? Because he was like holding it onto it like gold. And so I said, what is that? And he said, it's methadone. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't do drugs at this point, you know, not really, pot. And we were in New York, and it was in Harlem. And so I went with him. And the administrator said, hey, you look like you like to get high. Would you like to get on the program? Didn't test me if I had heroin in my system or drugs or anything. He just said, hey, why don't you get on the program? So the next day I was on maintenance for methadone. And I ended up being on that for 12 years. And then I started with the heroin and all the other drugs. You know, it's not always the drink or the drug that messes with you. It's the man, you know. And to me, I always picked the wrong one, you know. I was in a 19-year relationship. I was married, and to an alcoholic. And I think he was the most abusive of all, you know, when it comes to rape. So, yeah. And I remember begging God to please make it stop. And that was, you know, it seems like that was a pattern in my life. Everybody that you were supposed to trust, you know, my uncle, the priest, my husband, you know, they hurt you the most. You know, so I was beginning to think this is what life is about. You know, so it was hard. And when my kids had to come to me and say, Mom, it's time. My kids came to me and said that, it's time, you have to leave. You need to divorce Dad. And what kid says that, you know? And I did. And when I left him, I left with nothing. He kept absolutely everything, you know? And I started to have to rebuild myself. And I remember I was on a whole bunch of medications, a whole bunch of pills. You know, it's funny with the doctors, you know. I was on Xanax, I was on so many of this Tramadol, and they tried to get me on antidepressants, so many things. And I had my I surrender moment. I can't do this, you know, because I didn't remember any functions with my kids. Or I remember going to a game with my son, and I was going through such withdrawals. I was going through withdrawals more than I was feeling okay. And I didn't remember anything. And I surrendered. And that's when I flushed most of my pills, and I went online to see where I can go for a meeting. And that's when I found Celebrate Recovery. And I went to that meeting, and I had flushed everything, so I'm going through major withdrawals. I was feeling awful, but I went to the meeting, and that's when I found Angela, and she became my sponsor. And that was the road for my recovery. Today, I am in recovery. I had 9 years, a little slip up, but I'm working on 2. And I'm the house manager of a rehab home, a women's home, which I absolutely love doing. And I take care of the elderly, which is my heart also. And I have a love for the Lord, and I have such faith in Him because He's carried me through all of my life. You know, so many times you think that you should not have made it. And everybody has that story that I should not be here, you know, and He saved me for such a time as this. I'm here for a reason. I would say to the young girl that no matter how bad you are made to feel, bad enough that you want to self-harm, that God loves you. He'll never leave you. He will never forsake you. When you're in your addiction, go to meetings, get a sponsor, work your steps like a love affair, because it could be this thing that saves your life.